That time of the year is finally here, my friends. It's March Madness, baby, 2024 style. You're listening to a Second City Sports, a special edition. It's our Selection Sunday special on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid the Kid, which is me. That's Lakeena McGee, which is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow Mike Chen McGee on the Twitter, X, like here's going on IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. While you're at it, please give War Media a follow on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube at WARR Media. Once again, that's at WARR Media. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions, questions, comments during our 1 hour college basketball special, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given Lakeena full powers to give you fools to Bill and be a boot.
Toodles!
But before we begin, we must remind you can catch Sports Zone Chicago live in the living color on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on the sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Android, Chromebook, or your PC, just head up to Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And we will be providing you with the biggest bracket breakdown here on Second City Sports. Of course, we'll break down all the various teams and some of the teams that got that bubble burst, a lot of the bid stealers. And I already see some potential upsets in the making here over the week. So we got a lot to talk about in this next hour or so. We wish we had Mike Chen on, but he had something come up. So hopefully we'll have him on in a couple of weeks when we review the national championship game. But first, Sid, of course, if you guys saw the Selection Sunday special on CBS, I want to say, though, shout out to Adam Zucker, who did a great job pitching in for Greg Gumbel. Of course, he had a family emergency, so he couldn't, he's going to be off this year. But he did a really great job, keep things moving, breaking it down, and letting the analysts, Coach Wright, Seth Davis, and Clark Kellogg kind of do the talking. So did a really great job. And look, whenever Greg Gumbel retires, I think he's definitely going to be the heir apparent. He really should.
Yes, Adam Zucker, the whole crew. You mentioned Clark Kellogg, Seth Davis, and Jay Wright both did a great job holding it down. They went to the brackets right away, Lakeena, almost 2 minutes into the program. Of course, ESPN, those liars make you want to stay with SportsCenter. Yeah, to break down the brackets. Yeah, you had to wait about 10 minutes because CBS has exclusive announcements, but I digress. But Lakeena, before we break down the brackets region by region, I want to get your take on what happened the last couple of days. Not so much drama today. I know our hometown team, Defying the Illini, won the Big Ten tournament. They defeated the Wisconsin Badgers. Of course, the Auburn Tigers take out Florida in the SEC title game today in Nashville. Florida loses one of their big guys. We'll talk about that coming up. But I wanted to get your thoughts about Saturday because there were 5 bids that were stolen by bubble teams. If they didn't win their conference tournaments, they weren't going to make the tournament.
Yeah, let's start with NC State because NC State would not have gotten in. I think they had struggled all year. They had some close losses against North Carolina and Duke, and it was just crazy. And look, they said, why not us? And of course, look, we all remember that 83 national championship team that ended up going all the way. They had to get in. They beat Ralph Sands, who Virginia was number 1 in the country at the time, and they had to do all that. They beat Duke, they beat North Carolina and Virginia. first time since you go all the way back to the Vinny Del Negro and God rest his soul, Charles Shackelford, and of course led by again God rest his soul, Jimmy Valvano. They have a pretty tough matchup, so I'm a little afraid that they might run out of gas because remember they had to play 5 games in 5 days. The fact that they were able to do to win it all in the conference and get to the tournament that's just nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah, and congratulations to the North Carolina Wolfpack for beating North Carolina last night. And it's not last night, but Saturday night in the ACC tournament final. We talked about it a little bit, Lakeena, before we went on air today, that North Carolina State were one of those 5 teams. They stole bids from the bubble teams that were projected to be the last 4 in or the last 4 out. We'll break down those teams coming up. But I was definitely impressed by DJ Horn, one of their top
Yeah.
guards. And of course, he could play linebacker for the defensive tackle for the Chicago Bears. DJ Horn, this 275-pound left-handed big man.
Like 6'7" or something like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, he was definitely my tournament MVP in my opinion. You saw what happened in the last couple of games for NC State in that tournament. On last Friday night, they defeated Virginia. Mike O'Connell hit that shot off the glass to bank it in to send the game into overtime. That shot, in my opinion, saved their season up to this point. And of course, you saw what happened against North Carolina on Saturday night. So NC State is coming in hot, but like you said, the fatigue could become a factor. Remember, we're going to give you their schedule in just a moment, but they do start on Thursday. I'm sure they're getting their rest now and maybe a little bit tomorrow, but they'll probably practice a little bit of tomorrow, of course, on Tuesday, and then travel probably Wednesday afternoon to their destination to get ready for Thursday.
Yeah, they got a really, like you said, they got a tough matchup coming up, but we'll get to that in a bit. But of course, another team that was a bid steal late last night, Oregon. Oregon beat Washington State to win the title there, and of course, it's the last Pac-12 conference tournament, so they'll be in the record books. But Oregon's kind of struggled the last couple of years. There were some people that thought that maybe Dana Altman should, resign or retire, but they said no, not so fast. They went on a really good run, and they beat Arizona, and they beat Wazoo last night. So they got look, we know about Dana Altman's Oregon squad. They always gonna have great guard play and guys that can shoot the three. So that kind of led them. And I forgot the name of the guy that he did not miss a single shot the whole tournament. So that was he got talk about getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, his name is Nafala Dante, the left-handed big guy.
Dante.
He dominated last night, especially the last 5-6 minutes of that game for Oregon as they defeated the Colorado Buffaloes to win the last Pac-12 tournament title. Lakeena, I don't know if you caught the end of that broadcast last night. Of course, shout out to the new Detroit Tigers TV announcer Jason Benetti, Chicago's very own. He called the game along with Casey Jacobson. I don't know if you caught the last few moments of that broadcast last night, Lakeena. Casey Jacobson, of course, he played for Stanford, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yep.
Good. My memory's still good. So he had his closing comments last night. He did everything but cry. I'm just paraphrasing what he said. He said, let's not be bitter, but remember the players and the historic teams, talk about them, remember them, and put them in their proper place in college sports history. But it was, I hate to say, Lakeena, it was kind of sad to not to hear what he said, not just to hear what he said, but the way the college basketball, the way the college sports landscape is changing is really remarkable in some ways, but it's really sad in some ways that some old traditions are going away.
Yeah, no, of course, you got teams like UCLA, USC, Washington. They're going to the Big Ten next year. Of course, Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. So for me, yeah, it was definitely. I actually did see a clip of Jacobson's comments. Of course, he has a couple of these Pac-12. Well, it was Pac-10 then, but you can kind of tell the emotion of it. And a lot. I know Ashley Adamson, who I saw a clip of her on the Pac-12 network. She went to Cal, and she, it's kind of similar to what Casey's comments. I mean, just to kind of like the emotion of some of the other Pac-12, and you gotta wonder what's gonna happen to the Pac-12 network. We all those folks. So it's really unfortunate. But you know what, Oregon, to their credit, they were able to, look, they got in and they got a pretty good matchup as an 11 seed. So we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, a really good showing by Oregon. Probably the best I've seen Oregon play in a long time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Of course, a couple of the conferences to break down before we get to the revealing of the brackets. I want to go to the Big 12, Lakina.
Ah.
I did not see this coming. If you did, one, you're a liar. Number two, you're a liar. The Houston Cougars did get blown out by 28 points to Iowa State. Lakina, I think Houston will be fine, but they just didn't have it in that second half. Iowa, they caught fire. They were very active defensively, and some people argue that they should have been that last number one seed over North Carolina. But according to the committee, when your non-conference schedule is ranked in the lower 300s,
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
deserve a number one seed. That has never happened, and it did not happen this year.
Yeah, that's what I know. I heard some folks were saying that. Oh well, they should have gotten at least number one, at least a shot. But yeah, I mean they're not they played. I don't want to say they didn't play anybody, but
Mhm.
yeah, there was a reason why it was near the bottom of their non-conference schedule. So
Mhm.
they would have had the wins. Look, I got nothing against TJ Holsimer for doing that, but yeah, that's gonna kill you during tournament time. But they completely dominated last night, and again, I did not see that coming at all. I mean, they shot the ball well from three. Um, Keyshawn Gilbert, who's all Big 12. He was shooting lights out. Their defense was really good. That's probably the worst I've seen Houston play like pretty much all season. So they're able to kind of like just
Yeah.
dominate and get hot. I mean, to their credit, I mean, look, this is their first Big 12 title, and I think it's like about like 6 or 7 years, I think.
Yeah, the
So
tournament title. Yes.
yeah, so that was yeah, so a really good showing. But I think Houston will be okay. Kelvin says to this guys, they're going to use this as motivation. So look out whoever look out the tournament. So yeah, it's going to get very interesting.
Now, the AAC tournament took place today, the tournament final. The UAB defeated Temple 85-68. Of course, excuse me, UAB gets an automatic bid, but FAU, Florida Atlantic University, this is their first year in that conference. They get in the at-large bid, Lakina. I think they're ranked number 8 in that region. We'll
Yep.
tell you more about it coming up. But were you surprised by this?
Yeah, I mean UAB, they beat South Florida. They didn't get in either, and they were ranked for like the last couple weeks of
Mhm.
the regular season. So look, I mean they got hot. They can shoot the ball really well from three. This is actually their first year in the conference. Well, remember they were in Conference USA for years, and this is their
Mhm.
first year in the conference. So they get their ticket punched. They're back for the first time like about 4 or 5 years. So I mean, could they be a tough out for someone? Look, if they shoot the three well, yeah, of course they can, but that's going to be kind of hard, especially when tournament time comes. Now, the Mountain West Conference, I want to talk about that for a second. Of
Okay.
course, they, just New Mexico Lobos, their first. I can't believe been a decade since they've been in the tournament. That's kind of crazy, but
The Danny Granger area, I assume.
yes, right around that time, and yeah, and Jalen House, who Eddie House, if you saw him at the tournament, looks good by the way, and you're feeling
Mhm.
old too looking at him, and now he's got a kid who's like in college, but defensive player of the year in the Mountain West Conference, and yeah, it was his defense, it was his shooting. He has a lot of passion for the game. You saw how excited the crowd was, the Lobos
Mhm.
fans. To me, I think look when New Mexico's good in the Mountain West. I mean, that's when college hoops is great, and a very good representation from Mountain West Conference. We'll talk about it in a second, but yeah, I think New Mexico can do some damage. And they shoot their threes, and their defense is great.
Yeah, and one more conference tournament final to go through is the Atlantic 10 Championship final that took place earlier today in Brooklyn, New York. Great call by Kevin Harlan on CBS.
Yes.
Duquesne jumped out big, but VCU, Virginia Commonwealth, went for those of you scoring at home. They staged a big comeback, but they fell 6 points short. 6 points short. Duquesne defeated VCU 57-51.
Just make sure there was no confetti, like premature confetti. Did you see that, Sid? I mean, like the
Yeah.
confetti came down. And of course, Kevin Harlan, of course, whatever absurd thing happens, something usually absurd happens whenever he's calling games, no matter what the sport.
Mhm.
But but he and Dan Barrow, of course, as always, do a great job, there. But yeah, Duquesne, their first tournament bid since 1977. That's older than both of us. Sid. That was even before we were
Yes.
born. That was
Yes.
remember, yeah, the Bo Ellis Marquette era, of course, coached by late great Al McGuire. That was the year that
Hmm.
that they won a national championship. Yeah, it's been that long. And look, Duquesne, they beat Dayton, so they still end up getting in
Hmm.
anyway. And don't talk about Dayton. And yeah, I mean, look, I mean, look, you always feel good for the teams that get in. That first time in years. But
Hmm.
I don't know if they can do. Look, they might. Look, we were things happen in the tournament all the time. But yeah, but a really great story. And the coach his dad actually played at Duquesne, back in the 50s. Of course, he sadly passed away a few years ago, and you can see the emotion on Keith Dambrot's face. Of course, he's a coach for Duquesne, and just
Mhm.
the emotion after that game. And you can tell that he said that his father's probably dancing up in heaven. So that was a really sweet moment there with AJ Ross after the game.
Yeah, that was a really great moment. Any last minute thoughts before we reveal the brackets?
I mean, Illinois looked really good. Look, if Illinois could play like that, they can go far. If they don't,
Mhm.
they're going to be out early, and they got a pretty tough first round matchup. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, Iowa State, I didn't see that coming. Like you said, no one did, I'm sure.
Mhm.
And of course, Auburn, I know much of Sid's chagrin when they had on the SEC. But yeah, I mean, that's about it. I mean, look, let's get talk about these, break down these brackets.
All right, these are the games that will take place Thursday through Sunday in Brooklyn, New York, and this is representing the East Regional right now. The number one seed will be the Yukon Huskies. They check in with a 31-3 record. They're the number one overall seed for this year's tournament, and they will face number 16 Stetson. They check in with a 22-12 record. The next matchup will have number 8. The Florida Atlantic, as we talked about earlier, they're checking in at 25-8. They'll face the Northwestern Wildcats in the 8-9 game. Northwestern representing the Big Ten, 21-11 on the year. Their last game, I'm talking about Northwestern, they lost to Wisconsin on
Wisconsin.
Friday. So your first two matchups in Brooklyn, New York on Thursday. UConn and Stetson in the 1-16 matchup. In the 8-9 matchup, Florida Atlantic versus Northwestern.
Yeah, congratulations, Tessa. You get your first ever trip to the Big Dance. Bad news is you got to play the defending national champions. Sorry.
The Cologne School.
Yeah. Lots of they were making jokes about that, I'm sure, but yeah, this FAU that's Northwestern matchup I think is very fascinating. Of course, we'll see. Boo Booey. I'm sure they're a little bit of excitement there. I think FAU probably has like a chance to perhaps maybe win. This is the reason why it's an 8-9 matchup. I mean, they've got guards that can definitely shoot the ball. Talk about FAU, and if they're hot they're very similar. I think if they shoot their threes, I'm talking about FAU. They can be tough to beat. Same thing with Northwestern. So for me, this is going to be one of those games where who can shoot the three and who can play defense. Both FAU, they got a lot of those guys back that went to the Final Four last year, and I'm sure they're going to want to. They lost some tough ones to Temple. And their three, like I said, they do ball well from three, so that's what killed them in the end. So should be interesting to see who be a better shooting.
My concern is this before we move on. Northwestern, Boo Booey has 7 3-point field goals made last Friday in that loss to Wisconsin, but who else is going to help them out? I know Northwestern's finished the regular season strong. I know they've been dealing with injuries here and there all year, but who's going to help out Boo Boo, especially against a team like FAU who are more athletic, and like you said, they can shoot the three with the best of them. I saw them a couple times, especially against the Memphis Tigers. My guy Penny Hardaway, they can run up and down the floor. Northwestern can too, but they're more of a defensive team. And like you said, if FAU if they start hitting their shots early, it's going to be a long night for the Wildcats.
Very long indeed. And you can go ahead and finish up the East region, Sid.
Okay, the rest of the East region looks like this. These games will take place in Spokane, Washington on March 24th. We'll have number 4 Auburn hosting number 12 UAB. And we'll have in the 4-12, 4-12 matchup. Oh, sorry, the computer's screwing up right now. So the 4-12 matchup, Auburn versus the University of Alabama, Birmingham. In the 6-13 matchup, 12. 13.
Well, no. 4-13 got Auburn and Yale.
Auburn. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I messed up that damn computer. Sorry. 3-2-1.
Okay.
In the 12-5 matchup, we have San Diego State from the Mountain West Conference. They'll face UAB, who checks in at 2011. There we go. And then we'll have Auburn, number 4. Well, they will take on Yale. They check in at 22-9. Any upsets there?
I could definitely see UAB being San Diego State. I think, like I said, UAB, they shoot the three well. They could definitely give us the Aztecs fits. I mean, like San Diego State, it was kind of like a finesse. It was sort of like a dogfight between them and New Mexico yesterday. And if they can get it going there, they can definitely go far. UAB, like I said, 3 point. Like I said, they're shooting their threes. They can definitely give. Auburn might be interesting because Yale. Remember how the Princeton style offense a lot of these Ivy League schools play,
Hmm.
but Auburn can kind of counter that too. They got their own zone style defense, so it could be like first to 60 in that game. BYU and Duquesne. I mean, I think it's a toss up. I'm sure BYU. Look, they can shoot the three very well. They got a big guy up front that could definitely get it, but Duquesne, the Cinderella story. So yeah, it should be interesting. But the 11th seed, that's a because their non-conference schedule is actually really good. So that's probably why I was people wondering, like, wait, how did they get an 11? But their non-conference, what kind of helped them out there.
Okay, as Lakeena mentioned, these games, the last half of the East bracket, these games will take place in Omaha, Nebraska. You mentioned BYU versus Duquesne. I checked out BYU a couple of times this year, Lakeena. For a tough conference that they're in the Big 12, they did pretty well at 23-10. I know they bowed out early in the conference tournament, but BYU can be dangerous. I agree with you there. The next matchup, number 3, Defiant Illini from Illinois. They're 26-8. They won the Big Ten championship over the Wisconsin Badgers. They will take on Morehead State. They check in at 26-8. The other two matchups will feature Washington State at 24-9. They'll host number 10 Drake coming out of the Missouri Valley Conference, and the number 2 seed Iowa State, as we talked about earlier from the Big 12. They'll take on South Dakota State 22-12. Shout out to our girl Miss Christine the Queen Manica.
Newlywed. She's a newlywed. She, her husband, hubby Chris Gilman. Yeah, I wish she was here with us because I'm sure she has a lot to say about the Jackrabbits. Look, they always give teams fits, so I have no doubt they're gonna give Iowa State fits. We got the Iowa State's coming out of that high. They may use the fact that they may become a 1 seed as motivation. So could be an interesting game in that 2 versus 15. But yeah, that Wazoo Drake game, that's gonna be interesting too because these are kind of two teams that no one thought would get this far. So it's going to be interesting to see who can kind of play that attack in advance.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 14-3 matchup, Morehead State in Illinois. Of course, we talked about the final lineup earlier, Lakeena, about the style of play, the way that they play. You saw it in their last 2 games against Nebraska, and of course, earlier today against Wisconsin. When they play like that, I'm talking about Illinois, when they're aggressive defensively, and when they get out and run, as I said all year, they're one of the best teams in the country. Terrence Shannon Jr. showed that these last 2 games. He dropped a 34-piece earlier today against Wisconsin. He dropped a 40-piece yesterday against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Illinois, on paper, Lakeena, they have an easy path to the Sweet 16, but they got to put their pedal to the metal early. I see a potential matchup for them in the second round against BYU. That's going to be a tough challenge, but I think Illinois, if they put their minds to it, they should get to the Sweet 16.
Like I said, they can either get to the Sweet 16 or they could end up, going home early. So we'll see what happens there. And we got a little bit of time, Sid, before we go to break. We're gonna go take a little 2 and 2 at the bottom of the hour. So what region you want to go to next?
Let's go to the West Regional. These games will take place in Charlotte, North Carolina. Of course, the number one seed in this region will be the North Carolina Tar Heels at 27-7. They will take on Howard or Wagner. Those 2 teams will play in the play-in game Tuesday and Wednesday in Dayton, Ohio. The 8-9 matchup looks like this. The Mississippi State Bulldogs, who I thought they were out over the weekend, they're the number 8 seed. They'll face number 9 Michigan State. They check in with a 19-14 record. Michigan State in their last game, I watched on Friday, looking after we got off the air. They lost a tough one to Purdue, but as we said, all this around this time of year, head coach of the Michigan State Spartans, Tom Izzo, he has his teams ready to play. And what we saw, especially toward the end of the game against Purdue, even though they lost, Tom Izzo has this team focused. We talked about in the middle of February, Lakeena, they were on the outside looking in. After that big win they had at home against Illinois, they ran off about 4 or 5 in a row. I think they had another bad loss in there. I believe it was against Ohio State, and then they won the rest of their schedule to finish out the Big Ten regular season strong. Of course, as I mentioned, their last game they lost to Purdue last Friday afternoon in the Big Ten tournament, but Michigan State can sneak in a good run. We could possibly see a North Carolina-Michigan State matchup in the second round.
But don't sleep on Mississippi State. They got a couple of big guys that can get it going for the Bulldogs. So that's the reason why they were able to upset Tennessee. So they can shoot the ball very well too from 3. So they're shooting their threes. Like I said, another team that shoots the ball, from 3 very well. They depend on that a lot. So They could get Michigan State Fists. This could be like a track meet kind of game. So looking forward to that one. St. Mary's and number 12, Grand Canyon. Of course, the fighting, Bryce Drew as the coach there, and look, they
Yeah.
almost pulled off the upset last year. And St. Mary's, I know it's been like a week since since they played, so that could be a little bit of an issue here. So yeah, this might be one of these 12 versus 5 upsets here.
We talked about St. Mary's all year. Look here, they were the better team in the West Coast Conference over Gonzaga. We'll talk about them after the break. But St. Mary's is a physical team. So is Grand Canyon. But I think St. Mary's could be in trouble if they don't establish any sort of outside shooting. Because as I mentioned, mentioned about these two teams being physical, it takes its toll on you. You got to find another way to score. St. Mary's are able to do that against teams that can run up and down, but against physical teams, I don't know that style is going to work against them, especially at this time of year. By the way they play.
Yeah, that should be a fun, interesting matchup there. Alabama and Charleston. I mean, look, Charles, like I said, they've pulled off upsets before. So Nate Oates and his guys should. I'm not saying they should be on upset alert this time, but don't take Charleston lightly. They went undefeated in their conference, so that could be a thing that kind of like kills them in the end if they don't take this team lightly. So should be an interesting matchup there. Now the 6-11 matchup.
One said about the College of Charleston, if I have this correct, when they score 80 points or more, they're 20-0.
They're 20-0. Yep. So don't let them score 80 if you're Alabama. So I mean, I'm sure Nate Oates is gonna make sure his guys can probably tell, look, keep them under 80, keep them under 80. They have like a 20 game, they're 20-0 when they're play that. So yeah, that's gonna be an interesting matchup there. Now the 6-11 matchup's gonna be fascinating. You got Clemson and New Mexico.
Yeah, New Mexico is one of those last teams to get into the tournament. No one expected them to be in. They finished the year with a 26-9 record. Clemson 21-11 in the ACC. Sorry, in the ACC. And I know they had a couple of big wins in that conference for the year. I like the way they play, but I don't know if New Mexico will have enough to upset the Tigers. But this should be a close game than what people expected, especially with these two teams being seated with the 11-6 matchup.
Should be an interesting one. There you got Colgate back in the tournament for the fourth straight season. They face number 3 Baylor also in that region.
Baylor should not have a problem with Colgate. Shout out to our good friend of the show, Andy Mazer from WGN Radio, the Toothpaste University. They'll go up against Baylor. I watched Baylor a couple of times this year. We talked about them a couple of weeks ago on our daily show, and they beat Kansas at home. I'm not going to say convincingly by the final score, but by the way they play, and they took advantage of Kansas's struggles. And I like the way they play. They can get up and down, and especially against an inferior opponent on paper, it should be no trouble for Baylor. And they're outside of Houston, they were the next top team in that Big 12 conference all year, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And a good one here. Now, Dayton was already well in the tournament at number 7. They face number 10, also was very much in Nevada.
Yeah, we talked about Sid Lakeena a couple of weeks ago as the Loyola Rams of Chicago. We're trying to battle them for the top spot in the Atlantic 10 regular season title. They were ranked around the mid-teens throughout the year, the last part of the year. I know they bowed out early too in the Atlantic 10 tournament, but they're a good team. The committee saw that and they ranked them as high as they did at number 7.
Yeah, Nevada's one. I've seen. Like I said, I'm watching some of these games in the Mountain West Conference. It's great to see that they got 6 teams in. I mean that's amazing. I don't think they've ever done it. Even when back in the early years of that conference. It's been been a long time. But I really like how they play. I'm talking about Nevada. I mean they're a veteran squad. I mean they have a lot of transfers. Jared Lucas, who is I think he's a 5th-year senior. And was second team all Mountain West, and he's one of those guys that's going to be the key here. He's kind of like the floor general for the Wolfpack. If he can shoots the ball well, and as he goes, so does the Wolfpack. So this should be a fun matchup between them and Dayton, Nevada. I mean,
In the last game of the West Regional, the 2-15 matchup, the number 2 seeded Arizona Wildcats, they check in at 25-8, represent the soon-to-be defunct Pac-12 conference. They'll face number 15 Long Beach State. They won their conference tournament last night. Their head coach in the school decided to part ways earlier in the week. And look what happens. Last night, they upset UC Davis to win their conference tournament.
Yeah,
What a
Dan
story.
Munster. Yeah, Dan Munster, who, of course, for all the Big Ten fans, there was a former coach over in Minnesota for a long time. He was fired on Monday. The 49ers go on this run. They go back to the tournament for the first time in a long time. And safe to say that celebration is going to be a little bit awkward. So, but Arizona shouldn't have trouble with them. I mean, it's interesting because in this region, Caleb Love went to North Carolina, and if things kind of, pan out, we could be seeing them in the regional final. It's a long ways from now, but just that could be kind of interesting if that happens.
Yeah, I know Seth Davis was talking about that in the CBS broadcast earlier today, so we'll see if that happens. Stay tuned for more sports and more fun as the special edition of Second City Sports continues with our Selection Sunday special. We'll reveal the South and Midwest brackets. We'll give you our upsets, and we'll give you our predictions, at least in pencil anyway, to see who punches their tickets to the Final Four, which will take place in a couple weeks in Phoenix, Arizona. That and a whole lot more as you're listening to Second City Sports Selection Sunday Special right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
We're rocking and rocking along right here on a special edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. This is our Selection Sunday special. I'm Sid, that's Lakeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, again, the IG.
This is our last break of the show for today. So if you have any last-minute questions or comments regarding the NCAA Tournament 2024 style, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. What are your predictions? What are the players you're looking out for? What are the teams that you're rooting for and watching out for? You can hit us up in the comments section. The best ones go up, and the Lakeena will put them on the screen for you.
I will indeed. And let's go to the South region. And the number one seed there is Houston. They will face Longwood. And I'm going to go on a limb and say Houston's not going to be very happy, in a good mood after that loss to Iowa State, especially after the way they were blown out. I guess if you look at it and say that it's better that they have this kind of loss now over, instead of this week. So I guess if you're Kelvin Sampson, kind of look at it that way.
Yeah, and especially the way that game ended last Saturday night against Iowa State. Like you said, it left a bad taste in their mouth. I think Lone was going to be a ugly recipient of that wrath of anger. So Houston has had an extra day just to sit on it, and Houston shouldn't have no problem with going to the next round.
Absolutely. And next up, and if you guys saw my tweets from earlier, I'm looking forward to this 9-8 matchup. Wisconsin, 5-12 match, I should say, because Nebraska and Texas A&M. I'm getting old school Big 12 vibes from this matchup here, and of course Nebraska going for the tournament for the first time in about 6 years. Of course, they got A&M, who I think got in. They said upset win against Kentucky, so I think that kind of got punched their ticket well in. So this should be a good matchup.
Well, for Nebraska, shout out to Fred Hoiberg, who his team had a great year. I know they finally won their first road game to close out the year in the Big Ten.
Hey.
But watch out for Casey Komanaga for Nebraska. He wears jersey number 30. I know he didn't do too much against Illinois on Saturday, but this kid can play. He can shoot it. He can create his own shot. He can get to the basket, and he facilitates that offense for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Watch out for him. I think he's really going to carry the day for that Nebraska team.
Yeah, and A&M could play. They could, get you playing defense. So this could be definitely a contrasting styles type of game. So that should be a fun one there. Okay, so we all, like I said, we talk about all these 5-12s. There was at least one. This might be a candidate for this year. Wisconsin and James Madison. As soon as Adam Zucker saw that matchup with real that matchup with James Madison, I'm like, look, I know Wisconsin did very well in the Big Ten tournament. They got to the final. They upset Purdue, good for them. But James Madison, they're in a 12-game winning streak. And they could ask Tom Izzo because, for those who remember, they beat Izzo and his Sparty clan at home earlier this season, the first game of the season. And this team's very dangerous. Mark Byington, who I'm sure is going to get a lot of praise and a lot of like interviews or would be interviews for potential bigger headed coaching jobs. James Madison win the Sun Belt tournament, their first appearance in the Big Dance since 2013.
Yeah, I believe they're 6-4 in that quad one wins, if I'm not mistaken. You mentioned one of those wins was against Michigan State early in the year. I think they had the nation's longest winning streak as well at 13 games. So you mentioned the contrasting of styles. We saw what Wisconsin did in this Big Ten tournament. They fell short against Illinois earlier today. So Wisconsin, even though they had their issues toward the middle of the season, they got together to finish the regular season strong. And, of course, we mentioned what happened with Illinois earlier today. Wisconsin's at 22 wins and 13 losses. They're not going to get much rest, so I think James Madison can take advantage of that.
Should be a good one. And next up, you got Duke and Vermont. Vermont, of course, their third straight appearance in the tournament, win the American East. Duke, not a good showing against NC State, but you got to think if you're John Shire and his guys, you definitely want to kind of this could be kind of like a thing where this could be a get right type of game for them. So hopefully that'll be the case.
Yeah, Duke, like you said, they didn't fare out too well in the ACC tournament. I want to see what Philip Kowski can do. I know he injured his ankle a couple weeks ago in that silly, stupid fan storming at Wake Forest. But if he's healthy, I think Duke will do well. I think Duke can surprisingly get to the Sweet 16. They'll face either Wisconsin or James Madison in that second round matchup. Uh, if Duke is focused and they have their senior leadership leading the way, they can at least get to the Sweet 16.
I think they can too. I think all things very good. I think they can definitely get in there. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Now the 6-11 matchup, NC State. Of course, we talked about them earlier. They got a tough match against Texas Tech. Again, very different styles here.
Yeah, I'm calling it right now. I think NC State is going to win at least win at least this game because DJ Burns and DJ Horn, they were my top two players in the ACC tournament. You saw what they did in the last two games against Virginia and North Carolina. DJ Burns is we talked about looking at it before we went on the air. Yeah, he can play defensive tackle for the Chicago Bears. He's a 275-pound big man. He can score he's a left-hander, but he can score in the inside. And he showed his range a couple of times, especially with that three-pointer he hit last night against UNC in that tournament title game. So, but as you mentioned, I believe at the top of the show, this NC State Wolfpack team, they had to win 5 games in 5 days to get into the tournament. Will fatigue play a factor? We shall see.
Yeah, and I think they're playing Thursday, right? So this could be, this definitely could be a thing here, but we'll see. Maybe look, a couple of days off. Maybe that'll be the case.
Yeah, they play on Thursday. Yes.
Yeah, so this could be. We'll see. I mean, we'll see how much energy they have. Now, speaking of Kentucky, Kentucky, they get Oakland, not the baseball team, not the Oakland A's. This is the Oakland Golden Grizzlies from the Horizon. Greg Camp, this is his 40th year, which is crazy because he's only like 53. He started coaching when he was like 13. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, 40 years. And of course, going back for I think it's like their 8th trip to the dance. We're talking about Oakland. So could you see perhaps maybe Kentucky, getting upset here?
I don't know. I'll be honest here. I don't know much about Oakland, but looking on the flip side for Kentucky, this is the healthiest they've been since early March, late February. Lakeena, I know John Calipari's been dealing with injuries here and there throughout the entire season. I know they were once considered a quote-unquote bubble team at one point this year, but they got it together late. I know they bowed out early in the SEC tournament, but they finished the regular season strong. I think they'll handle Oakland here, but and they may get to the Sweet 16. It depends on if they play Texas Tech or NC State in that potential second round matchup. But Kentucky could see a challenge if they advance to the Sweet 16.
Could be a big challenge there. Now, of course, number 7 Florida, runners up in the SEC tournament. They lost one of their big guys to injury, so that fractured his leg. That could be an issue there for Florida. They do face. I don't have the who's the 2-11.
It's a 7-10 matchup. Yeah, Florida's number 7. They'll face Boise State or Colorado. They're both ranked number 10. They'll play in the first 4 game Tuesday and Wednesday in Dayton, Ohio. Colorado is one of those last teams to get in. Of course, they lost the Pac-12 tournament title on last night to Oregon. I think even though Colorado did come up short down the stretch last night, I like the way they've been playing. They were ranked off and on all year. So I think Florida, with their entry, I think they're primed from an upset if Colorado beats Boise State next week in that playing game. If it's Boise State, I think it's a toss-up there. But if Colorado beats Boise State in Dayton, I think Colorado gets Florida because of Florida's injury problems.
Should be interesting there. And of course, remember Boise State, they're one of their top guys too. So Colorado, this could open it up a little bit for Colorado to go a little bit of a run here. So we'll see what happens. And the last game in the South region, you got Marquette and Western Kentucky. Now, I'm not saying that Shaka Smart and his guys are an upset alert, but Western Kentucky, they win their first Conference USA title since joining the conference. They were in the Sun Belt for many years. Went to this like their 11th or 12th trip to the dance. They beat Middle Tennessee. This is like their first year in the conference. They've got guys that can shoot the ball very well, and I've seen them a couple of times this year. And like I said, I'm not saying that they should be an upset alert. I'm not saying. Look, I don't want more. Look, our girl Jen Latta from, of course, worked at NBC Sports Chicago for many years. She works at ESPN. I don't want her to think that I'm not saying, I'm not putting out there the bad vibes. No, but I think Shaka. I'm just saying that they shouldn't take the Hilltoppers lightly. That's all I'm saying.
Well, they gave UConn all they could handle last Saturday night at MSG in that Big East Conference tournament game. I know they lost by 15, but I watched a couple of their games. I like the way that they're playing. We talked about them on our show last Friday, Lakeena, where they beat Villanova, even though they should have counted in that regulation, but that's all in the past. But Marquette is usually one of those teams that you don't want to play at this time of year. They always have one of the top records in the country, even though they're in the Big East now. But they could be scary, and I'm with you. They'll get by Western Kentucky, but they shouldn't take them lightly. And the road, at least on paper, is set up pretty easy for them because they'll take on the winner of Florida versus Boise State or Colorado. So if Shaka Smart has his guys focused, they can get to the Sweet 16 as well.
Should be a full again. Don McHenry, who's actually from Milwaukee, by the way, and like I said, it says as he goes, so does the Hilltoppers. So they're gonna have to slow him down to kind of get him there. Now, you do the Midwest, Sid. Last but not least.
All right, the Midwest bracket looks like this. This is the last bracket for the 2024 NCAA men's basketball tournament. These games will take place in Indianapolis. The number one seed for this region is the Purdue Boilermakers, 29-4 overall. They'll face the winner of the Montana State Grambling, a black college, HBCU. Those two teams will play early next week in the play-in game in Dayton, Ohio. So that's the 16-1 matchup. I think it's safe to say, Lakeena, that Purdue will learn their lesson from last year and not lose to a 16 seed.
You hope. You hope.
Okay. All right, moving on.
Yeah, they should have no trouble with whoever comes out of there. Look, congrats to Grambling State. Their first. I'll leave up. This is their first ever trip to the dance.
Yes, congratulations to them.
That's kind of odd to me, but yeah, good for them. Good for the Tigers.
All right, this next game in Indianapolis on Thursday will have the 8-9 matchup. The number 8 team in the country in the bracket, in the Midwest bracket, rather, the Utah State. They're checking in at 27-6. They'll face Jamie Dixon's TCU, the Longhorns, the Froghorns.
Horn Frogs.
Horn Frogs, excuse me. Flip it and remix it. They check in with a 21-12 record from the Big 12. I saw them earlier in the year, Lakeena. I'm talking about TCU. We all know they can get up and down the court. They can shoot the three ball well, especially playing in the Big 12 conference. Utah State, I'm not so sure about. Having seen them. I know you've seen them way more than I have, but I think TCU could set the pace right here.
Yeah, very similar styles. I would say take the over in this game. This game coming up. I think this could be like first and 90, I think, because both these teams can shoot the ball very well. It's going to really depend on who can kind of be the stopper defensively. So we've seen, sometimes TCU can kind of be a little bit, careless with their defense at times, but so can Utah State. So, of course, Jameer Nelson Jr., of course, plays for TCU, I should say, and Utah State's got some great veteran guys as well. So this should be a good matchup on Friday.
All right, these next two games will take place in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the Midwest bracket. The 5-12 matchup, Gonzaga, yes, the Bulldogs, once considered a bubble team midway through the season. They check in with the 25-7 record out of the West Coast Conference. They'll face Monique State. They check in with a 30-3 record. Monique State is one of 4 teams in the entire country that check in with 30 wins. And for your old school basketball fans, that's the school where Basketball Hall of Famer Joe Dumars played back in the day.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that is true.
And I did not read that off of Google.
Yeah, right. And I know that they dropped the state like a couple earlier this year that the school dropped the state. So there's Moniz now. I made that mistake too. No, they dropped the state like early in the school year. But yeah, look, I also laughed when I saw this matchup. I thought, okay, this is gonna be a tough one from Gonzaga. Shadada Wells, who's probably one of the best players outside the Power Five, Southland Conference Player of the Year. He can shoot the ball very well, and I really think that they're going to give Gonzaga all they can handle. Wouldn't be surprised if they somehow upset Gonzaga because they get a little bit, hot shooting Gonzaga. But again, I mean, they're kind of like they average. I think they average about like 80 points themselves. So this could be a team that the Cowboys of McNeese, as we call them, and yeah, they're hot shooting. So we'll see what happens with this one. This should be a good one.
Before we move on, Lakeena, do you think that Gonzaga was seated too high? I think so. It's considering that they lost to St. Mary's twice this year.
I think that win against Kentucky kind of saved their bacon. I really do believe that, and I think that kind of, if they had lost, they probably would have had to beat. And I think they did beat St. Mary's, on the road, so that might have helped them a little bit as well. So like, okay, whatever. But yeah, I think that Kentucky kind of saved their butts.
Yeah, I think they were ranked too high, but we'll see what happens there. In the last game in the first round in Salt Lake City, we'll have number 4 Kansas Jayhawks 22-10 out of the Big 12. They'll take on Samford, SAMFORD. They'll check in as the 13th seed with a 29-5 record.
Not Stanford, folks. Samford.
That's why I spelled it.
SoCon. They go back. They're back to the dance for the first time in 24 years since 2000. They're in the Southern Conference, SoCon as they call it. And look, this is probably going to be a trendy upset pick because considering the fact that the way Kansas lost early in the Big 12 tournament, Hunter Dickinson might be out. They might be down to only like 7 or 8 guys. So Samford, they got 29 wins, I should say. The highest at the program has won in their history, and yeah, they could definitely. Yeah, I would be surprised if Kansas somehow lose in the first round. Which would not surprise me.
Yeah, and as I told you a couple weeks ago, Lakeena, when Kansas lost to Baylor on the road, but they were still ranked in the top 10 in the country. If you had told me that Kansas team would have been ranked in the top 10 with a 9-7 record at the time in the Big 12 conference, I would have said you would have been smoking something. But as you talked about, they had a bunch of injuries throughout the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if Samford pulled off the upset. And Kansas, give them credit still to pull out 22 wins in an off year in the Big 12 conference is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, they should be commended for that, but this could be the not want to say the death knell, but this could be the thing that kind of we'll see. I mean, look, they may surprise us. They may win a couple of games. Who knows?
All right, the last half of the Midwest bracket looks like this. These next 2 games will take place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The 11-6 matchup. Number 6, South Carolina, checking in at 26-7 from the SEC. They'll take on the Pac-12 tournament champion Oregon Ducks. They check in with a 23-11 record. That's your 11-6 matchup. And in the 14-3 matchup, Akron with a 24-10 record. They'll face the Creighton Blue Jays out of the Big East. They're checking with a 23-9 record.
Yeah, Creighton is one of the. I know I heard Seth Davis say that Creighton could win a couple of games, but I've been saying this all season. They depend on the 3 a little bit too much for my liking. That's what killed them early on in the Big East tournament. I'm not gonna say they're gonna have trouble with Akron, I don't think, but you never know where things happen. The Zips are back in for the first time in a while, and that should be an interesting matchup there. The 3-14, the 6-11 should be interesting too because neither team was expected to get here. So South Carolina, they were picked to finish last in the SEC. Like I said, Lamont Paris got extra bag of cash, so he's going to be there for a little bit. Oregon, like I said, some people thought that Dana Altman should be gone. Well, look, I think he showed you that he can still coach. So that should be a fun matchup there.
Yeah, Nafala Dante, watch out for him, that big guy for Oregon. He controlled the paint. He made a couple of big plays down the stretch in that Pac-12 title game clincher over Colorado. I want to see what he does against a much better South Carolina team. Now, these last 2 games will take place in Charlotte, North Carolina in the Midwest bracket. We will have the 7-10 matchup. Number 7, Texas, which I was surprised at this seeding. Texas, out of the Big 12, they finished the year with the 20-12 mark. They'll face the winner of the Virginia-Colorado State contest, which take place early next week in Dayton, Ohio. So Virginia and Colorado State, they'll face each other in the playing game. So Texas, with the number 7 seed, they'll face Virginia or Colorado State.
Yeah, Colorado State had a really solid non-conference schedule. That's why they got in, even though they did lose to New Mexico. No, they lost to San Diego State, I should say, in the semifinals. When I saw Virginia, I thought another team was, but we'll get to that in a second. We'll talk about bubble teams who got burst, but yeah. Texas, I'm not surprised. Again, they had a solid non-conference schedule, as that's kind of helped them in the 7th seed part. Of course, last but not least, Tennessee. And number 15, St. Peter's, they're back. So I don't think Tennessee shouldn't have a hard time, but like I said, I don't know too much about St. Peter's, but could they do it again? I don't know, but
well, their old head coach, Mr. Holloway, is now with Seton Hall, which one of the teams that got their bubbles busted. We'll talk about the others in just a minute or two. But I watched Tennessee a couple of times. Lakeena, they're very athletic. They can shoot the ball very well. At times they do depend on the three a little bit too much, but they shouldn't have a problem with St. Peter's. Now, I want to go back to that Texas, Virginia / Colorado State matchup. I think if it's Texas versus Virginia, I think Virginia will beat Texas. But if it's Colorado State, I think it's up in the air.
Yeah, it should be an interesting matchup there. Whoever comes out of that, it should be a good matchup regardless. And that is that's your brackets for the men's side of the NCAA tournament. Actually, Second City Sports, Second City Sports, our bracket edition, our March Madness bracket selection Sunday edition, however you want to say it, here on Sports on Chicago. Lakeena McGee, Cindy Brown, with you now. Bubble team, Sid. This is according to the committee. First, the last 4 that got in: Boise State, Colorado, Virginia, and Colorado State. And the first 4 teams that were out: Oklahoma, Seton Hall, Indiana State, and Pitt.
I think you can make a case for Indiana State. I know they had the high, as Seth Davis said on the CBS broadcast, they had the highest rated RPI to not qualify for the NCAA tournament. I think they do have a gripe there. When I saw the Virginia name pop up, Lakeena, with Colorado, with that 7-10 matchup with Texas, I said to myself, and I said to you before we went on live, St. John's and Rick Pitino are out.
I said the same thing, and and then I'm sure I haven't seen any of the interviews with some of the coaches. I'm sure Coach Pitino was very disappointed. There, Oklahoma, I can kind of say has a little bit of a gripe. Maybe if they had gotten to the semifinals, maybe that would have helped them a little bit. So a little. I think OU, I think Porter Moser, his guys, has a gripe as well. Seton Hall, I'm not surprised. I know they had a couple big wins in the tournament, but they got blown out by UConn. That didn't help their cause. They lost early in the Big East tournament. That didn't help their cause.
Yeah, to St. John's. Yep.
Yeah, so that really didn't help them much. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Well, and of course with the NIT, I'm sure will there be room for those 4 teams that we mentioned that got their bubble burst because a lot of the smaller conferences, they lost their a lot of number 1 seeds there. So we'll see if there's going to be even room left for them. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But I'm hoping this doesn't add to the argument that let's expand the field. No, don't do that, please. It's perfect the way it is. The first 4, they mixed it up a little bit, doing a couple of 10 seeds. It kind of mixed it up a little bit there this year. Usually it's just all 11s, but and a couple of 16s. But yeah, I don't like the idea of expanding the field to 96 or even 76, as some people were saying. I just don't.
No, I know why some people are saying that, to get more coaches to keep their jobs and other stuff happening. That's just going to be a mess. Just to reiterate, the first 4 games we'll have 2 on Tuesday, 2 on Wednesday. These are the matchups. All these matchups will take place in Dayton, Ohio. Howard versus Wagner, Virginia versus Colorado State, Montana State versus Grambling, and Boise State versus Colorado. Those are the 4 games that will be taking place in Dayton, Ohio. 2 on Tuesday, and then again 2 on Wednesday. Lakeena, do you have the conference breakdowns in terms of bids? I know, as we said for the last month, the Big Ten got 6 teams into this year's dance.
Yeah, and the Mountain West got just as much with 6. I think that's the most ever since the Mountain West became a conference. The Big 12 actually and the SEC are tied for the most with 8. Like we said, Big 10 and Mountain West had 6. ACC had 5. Pac-12 had 4. Big East only 3, which you kind of thought, that's interesting. 2 from the American, 2 from the A10, and 2 from the West Coast Conference, of course, St. Mary's and Gonzaga. The Big East have only 3 teams. That's the fewest since 1993, 31 years. So, yeah, a lot of bid stealing going on. And I think you saw why, we talked about some of the bubble teams. Like I said, when I saw Virginia with Colorado State in that bubble, I said, you know what? No more St. John's. So that was a bummer. Yeah. Indiana State, I could kind of see, but remember, they lost to, I think it was Illinois State and Southern, or it might be Bradley and Southern Illinois. So I think that kind of killed them in that sense. I know they had a really good non-conference schedule, but in these situations, you got to win your tournament from one of these non-Power 5, because look, I know that's a bummer. I know Seth Davis was very disappointed. I know he was the one that was lobbying for them to get in, even though when they lost to Drake last week. But yeah, they just didn't deserve it in the end. I just don't think they did.
Yeah, well, the committee has said, and I saw the interview with Dr. Charles McCullers. He was on CBS, and I saw a little bit of it, try to catch it during the live broadcast of the ESPN Bracketology Part 1. He was on there. He's the chairman of the selection committee, and he's the head of the Southwest Conference. And he talked about, I'm paraphrasing, he talked about how you're going back to Iowa State earlier, you got to have a strong non-conference schedule, and you got to have some quality quad 1 wins.
Yeah,
that's really basically been the theme with this with the committee over the last few years, and this year was no exception.
Yeah, especially in recent years when they started doing the whole quad 1-2 thing. I still think it's a little bit silly, but that's another discussion for another time. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Iowa State, like I said, they really didn't play anybody, so I can kind of understand why they didn't get the number 1 seed. I know a lot of Cyclones fans are going to be very happy about that. And like I said, same thing with Indiana State. I mean, they really didn't play too much anyway. I know they were dominating a lot of their opponents in the Missouri Valley, but like I said, Brad losing to Illinois State, Southern, that kind of killed whatever vibe. And Drake losing to Drake in the conference tournament definitely didn't help them either.
All right, we winding it down here on Selection Sunday special right here on Second City Sports or Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here, hanging out here with you. I know this is going to be our predictions in pencil, as Lakeena would say. Do you see any potential upsets here? Because we already know that usually 12 upsets of 5, usually 4 and 13 and 7 to 10 at times, depending on the teams. It usually goes back and forth. Like I said, sometimes 11 upsets at 6. One of my early upsets I'm calling right now, number 11 NC State will beat Texas Tech coming out of the South region.
Keeping a hot hand there. And look, like I said before, I think Manise can upset Gonzaga.
That's in the Midwest bracket.
Yeah, the Midwest. Yeah, I just think that Gonzaga, I'm not going to say they didn't deserve to get in, but like I said, that Kentucky win could save their Tookuses. So I think, look, I think Manise is probably one of the best teams that's probably going to be the trendy pick, I think. And there was one more. Wisconsin and James Madison in the East region. I really think that's going to happen as well.
Okay, now going back to our local teams, Lakeena, in the East bracket. Of course, we'll have Northwestern versus Florida Atlantic in the 8-9 matchup. As we talked about, Florida Atlantic, they were the Cinderella team last year. They got to the Final Four. Do you give Northwestern a chance, or does Florida Atlantic roll?
They have a shot, but like I said, as Boo Buie goes, so does Northwestern. If he's not can kind of take the team on his back, look, FAU can go at least a good 10 to 12 deep. So they can kind of get these going here, and they may wear out Northwestern. So this could be a short trip for them.
Yeah, so whoever wins that game, they'll face potentially UConn, and I think Florida Atlantic has a better chance against UConn than Northwestern does. But in this year, parity, anything can happen. And of course, the Fighting Illini in the East region, they're the number 3 seed. They'll face Morehead State, ranked number 14. If Illinois gets by Morehead State, they'll face BYU or Duquesne. And as I said early in the show, and I'll keep saying this, Illinois has had the talent on paper the last couple of years, and they have disappointed. But the way they've been playing this Big Ten tournament and the way they ended the regular season, minus that loss to Purdue at home, blowing that 10-point lead. I like the way this Illinois team has been playing, and at least on paper, they should have an easy path to the Sweet 16.
Like I said, if they can play like they played, this weekend in the Big Ten tournament, hey, look, I'll put them in there, and maybe going in the second week. But if they don't, they might go bye. So we'll see what happens.
All right, your final four picks in pencil, as you would say.
Yeah, don't take these picks at face value, folks, and I'm sure I'll probably change them. So I'm sure as we get into this, but I got UConn coming out of the East.
Okay.
And I guess North Carolina coming out of the West. Going boring here with the chalk for those first two regions. I might regret this later. Lord, for the love of me. I'm picking Tennessee to come out of that Midwest region. I don't know why, but I don't know why, but I feel like Dalton Kennick, who is all SEC. I think he can definitely kind of, especially after what happened against Mississippi State in the SEC tournament. I think they're going to want to kind of get that taste out of their mouth. And look, this Tennessee team can play better than this, so I'm picking Tennessee out of the Midwest region. Look, I can put like a lot of teams' names on the hat in this region. You probably can kind of like take them out. The South region, I should say, for the Wisconsin versus James Madison matchup there that I have the upset. I'll say Houston coming out of the South.
Okay, my final four picks looks like this. I agree with you with Houston coming out of the South. In the Midwest bracket, I will go with Purdue, just to be on the safe side. Representing the West region, I will go in a slight upset, the Arizona Wildcats. Not too many people are talking about them right now. They finished the year at 25-8. I know they didn't look great in the Pac-12 tournament, but I think they'll regroup and show why they're one of the best teams in the country throughout the majority of the year. And my team coming out of the East region, of course, is UConn.
All right, so those are our final four picks. Like I said, we might change it by the end of by this time next week. So take them at pencil and don't take them at face value. So anything else before we disperse it for the night?
Yeah, just a television schedule reminder. Of course, Tuesday and Wednesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on True TV. Go find it on your streaming or cable service providers. There'll be 2 games on Tuesday, 2 games on Wednesday in the first 4 play-in tournament games. Those games can be seen on True TV. And of course, as you're an old school basketball fan like we are, the real tournament starts on Thursday at 11 o'clock Chicago time on CBS. Of course, the other tournament games on CBS, not just CBS, it'll be broadcasted on TBS, TNT, and True TV. And of course, this year's Final 4 games will take place in Phoenix, Arizona, Saturday, April 6th. The games will be seen on TBS. Of course, the national championship game will be Monday night, April 8th. That'll take place in Phoenix, Arizona. They will also be seen on TBS. So this year's Final 4 will be seen on cable, folks, on TBS.
Yeah, make sure you guys make that note. This is part of the new TV agreement. So every couple of years, you're gonna have TBS. So look, it's part of the deal. So I'm sure. The CBS with Warner Bros. Discovery. And of course, speaking of that, of course, don't forget our buddy Spiro Davis who had the call of those first 4 games with Jim Sparnacle and John Rothstein on the sidelines. So of course they put, I guess because of the scheduling and stuff, they put both the HBCUs in the play-in. I know some people have gripes about that, but considering that Howard was a 4 seed in the MEAC, and of course, it's Gramblin's first. They usually do that with teams in their first trips to the dance. They usually put them in the first floor. So I guess to kind of give them warm up a little bit. But they play Wagner, which only goes about 6 or 7 deep. So they shouldn't have no trouble with Grambling. I know Grambling kind of want to extend their stay in the tournament. So it should be fun as usual, especially with the parity and stuff, Sid, like you said. This is pretty much a wide open field.
Yes, can UConn do it again? Yes, but I think we're going to see a whole lot more upsets than we have ever before. And what we saw on Saturday with five bid steals, and like Dr. Charles McCullough said on the CBS broadcast earlier, that they only had 3 bid stealers combined in the last 2 years. We saw 5 on Saturday. If if that's the indication of what we're going to see in this NCAA tournament coming up, buckle up. I can't wait.
should be fun as usual. So enjoy the tournament, folks. With that said, you can follow Keena McGee on the Twitter, X and Kids again, the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Catch our daily shows every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more time, as Lakeena would say, catch our daily shows, Second City Sports, live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, and of course, we'll have more tourney talk on Monday and Friday as well. We'll break down Thursday's games, of course, preview Friday's games. We may see some upsets, on Thursday, so who knows?
I'm sure we will.
Yeah, absolutely. So enjoy the tournament, folks. Look, if you're I'll watch the first 4 games just to support our buddy Sparrow Diaz from CBS, and of course the game's gonna be on True TV. I'm sure they're gonna have a little cheat where True TV is and your respective streaming and cable system. So they do that every year. So for all the reminders up there, but yeah. So enjoy the tournament, everybody. For Sid, I'm Lakeena. This is Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Finishing up your St. Patty's Day night. Don't overdo it, folks, because I know some of y'all got to go to work tomorrow. And enjoy the tournament, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for our regular show.
ILLI, I and I. Go Illini. Holla!